I'm going to begin by asking you, tell me about your background. Where were you born, your parents, family?
Right. I'm the son of an Irish immigrant, Michael Curley, from County Galway in Ireland, and my mother was a former Pennsylvania educator, a teacher, and they met on the Queen Mary, fell in love, and had my brother first and me, John Curley, and myself. I was born in Waltham, Massachusetts. Don't remember that because I was an infant. But I grew up in Putnam Avenue in Cambridge, between Harvard Square and Central Square. And so I used to play in the Harvard yard when I was a kid growing up. I was always a good student, and my mother was an educator, and she made sure that I did my homework and that I was accomplished even in elementary schools, middle school. So I had a good stellar career right from the beginning, and I think I wanted to be a teacher all my life, very much so, and that's what I became at Bridgewater State, that kind of thing. I uh, I went to Boston College. I went to a Catholic high school, Our Lady Help of Christian. My family moved in 1951 out of Cambridge, and I grew up in Newton Corner, where they bought a home, and that's where I spent most of my early life before I became a college student.
And you went to Boston College.
I went to Boston College. I was a good student. I majored in English and minored in Latin. And my mother taught me Latin when I could read fluently Latin when I was 12 years of age. She was a Latin teacher, and I continued that at Boston College as a minor, and I became an English major under the influence of a wonderful teacher, Professor John Mahoney, who died about 5 or 6 years ago. And I became an English major in preparation for a career as a professor of English, which would eventually, where I would spend most of my life at Bridgewater State University. I graduated as an English major and a minor in Latin. I graduated from Boston College in 1965, summa cum laude, class valedictorian, and I was already published in scholarly journals. And those publications helped me get accepted into Harvard University's graduate school, where I received my master's in 1966 and my PhD in philosophy, with the idea that I'd become a professor of English. I graduated with my doctorate at Harvard in 1970.
What was the title of your doctoral thesis?
Samuel Johnson and the Age of Travel.
Now, what got you interested in Samuel Johnson?
Yes, a very good question, David. My mentor, Morris Quinlan, one of my major mentors intellectually at Boston College, was a man by the name of Morris J. Quinlan. And Morris Quinlan was a scholar of Samuel Johnson and taught me my course in the Age of Johnson at Boston College. He also took me aside. He said I was the most brilliant student he ever had, And I became very fascinated by Samuel Johnson in Morris Quinlan's class, and Morris also took me aside to teach me scholarly skills. And I wrote and published my first article, a learned article on Samuel Johnson by the time I was a senior at Boston College. And that article and other publications that I was able to, plus my standing as class valedictorian, helped me get accepted into Harvard University's graduate school. Why Samuel Johnson? I was bitten by his personality from the time I was a junior as an undergraduate at Boston College. So this goes way back. I've actually known Samuel Johnson longer than my wife, my late wife, who passed away about 13 years ago. And what made me, what did I find so appealing, the question you asked? Samuel Johnson was a very good man, and he was a very great author. And the combination is sometimes goodness and greatness is sometimes hard to find in a writer. And he had both. And his writings probe the complexity of the human condition with great brilliance. He is England's most famous moralist, as well as the first author of the English dictionary. And he's probably England's greatest literary critic. His writings are still consulted for his opinions about great writers in his time and in the English past. So that combination of being a very good man, a kindly, charitable man, and at the same time probing so brilliantly the complexity of the human condition, my students find a relevance in Johnson's life and writings to their own lives in modern times. So he's a writer for all seasons, not simply for the 18th century, which is my period of scholarly specialty. So for that reason, the goodness and greatness of the man's mind, his character, his ability to probe human complexity, and its relevance to modern times, that was as what made me fascinated to try to probe new sides of his life that had never been known before. And that leads me not only to my teaching, but to my scholarship. I was just so fascinated. I spent my life looking for new sides, new writings, new aspects of this great man's mind and writings, so that I could say I've been where nobody's ever been before. It may be a small moon, but I landed on the moon for the first time with many, many different things that I published.
Did you meet Anne while you were at Harvard?
Yes, I did. I dated frequently young women my age throughout my graduate years. I dated many women because I didn't want to get serious with anybody. So it's either not dating at all or dating many. And I used to be known in my graduate school as a person that went out with a lot of women. But I met Ann through a friend who was going to deliver a wedding present to a young woman who was going to get married. And it turned out that she was having a wedding and she didn't have enough young men there to dance with the women and so forth that were going to be at the wedding. So she asked me to go. This is the young woman, the bride-to-be. And I remember meeting Ann at this